All right, welcome to episode 149 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We're recording February the 13th, 2022. My name is Eric, host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and of course, computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and started a small preparedness company to help people better prepare for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
I'm Scott, first responder from Ontario. I like learning things, and I worry about our fragile infrastructure.
And I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, and general overall handyman.
All right, we've got Mike joining us this evening. He is a master generalist, more so than a specialist, teaches workshops in cabin, tiny home design, divides his time in Ontario's woodlands, and likes diving into projects that are over his head and digging his way out of those. So that sounds like a lot of fun. The main reason he's here today is to chat long about his walk across Canada. So if you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, you can buy some swag. We've got the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at prepperpodcast.ca. All the proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some high endurance content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with some recent news articles. We'll update you on what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we'll get into the main topic of a walk across Canada. So we'll move into the news. So first off, there is some protests going on. I'm sure everybody is fully aware of what's happening all across Ontario and a couple other provinces in Canada. They're happening. Be aware of them. We're not going to get into the politics behind them because that's just not what we're here to talk about. So keep your heads on a swivel if you're in the areas and be safe out there. And that's all we're going to say about them.
Expect delays.
Expect delays,
yeah. Expect some empty shelves, but hey, it is what it is. So I've got an article here from City News. I'm sure everybody who's been out and about, if you went to put gas in your vehicle, you had sticker shock, shall we say. Right now, record gas prices, and they're probably going to continue to rise. Toronto right now is around $1.60. I had a friend send me a picture from White River. They're $1.75 for regular. Rumor is we could be getting close to or nearing the $2 mark by early summer. So, again, not much you can do, but just be aware.
Walk.
Yeah. Good one. And also, I got another article here. It's from the New York Times, but it's kind of all over the internet. So SpaceX deployed 49 satellites, decided to do it during or very shortly before a geomagnetic storm, and 40 of them have been lost and are expected to, I guess, come back to Earth at some point and be destroyed in the atmosphere. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. They should be paying attention to that kind of stuff before you spend, I don't know what, it was $3-something million, I think, was the cost of those 40 satellites that are now gone.
Well, I think a couple of us had picked up on that article because it's a very tangent example of paying attention to that space weather, and our very fragile society can be impacted by these things. And I'm sure when they scheduled it, the storm caught them off guard, but it's an expensive whoops.
They're trying to get it up before gas.
Those storms affect more than that. They affect the radios if you're a ham radio or whatever, and could, I guess, affect cell phones and whatever too. So yeah, it's not just the satellites, obviously.
Yeah, that's poor timing on launch though. That kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Ukraine is still a thing. The tension in that part of the world is still going on, and several countries have moved their embassies out of Kyiv into other parts of the country. So I think everyone's kind of expecting the worst.
Yeah, they were saying, I heard it this afternoon, that I don't know, I just don't like it when they just keep throwing stuff out, but in the fear mongering, whatever. But they're saying, a lot of people are saying they expect something to happen within the next 4 to 7 days. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen this week, they're saying.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's going to get interesting, and hopefully it doesn't get too interesting.
Yeah.
Well, shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
So unfortunately, we had a loss in the family. It was a very good reminder that there's the end of the world as we know it, and then there's the end of your world as you know it. We talk a lot about massive power outages and civil unrest, but there's also big family emergencies, medical diagnoses, your company goes under. So it's just sort of a little poignant reminder about these things. I appreciate the help from my mag, including some friends here. So thank you guys.
Yeah, sorry for your loss.
Yep. I just did the monthly test on my generators. Everything is well so far, hopefully. And just replenished some of my fuel stock.
For me, we just did the stock up of the big deep freezer here because prices are just going to do nothing but go up, assuming there's things to buy in the store. But we stocked everything up and did all of that. And besides that, it's going to work, and more work. Mike, anything to add to the list for preps, or you want me to move on?
More house repairs than anything else. Kind of a stitch in time saves 9 kind of thing. I always thought that was like about something that was like time travel or something. I didn't really understand what that expression really meant. And it makes so much more sense now. It's about like mending your clothes before they go wrecked. But I thought it was like some sort of like Stephen Hawking. I didn't really understand. But yeah, I mean, those things you learn like way, way, way too late. It's one of those. Yeah, I had nothing really specific this week I could think of. I didn't really do any canning.
Fair enough.
But,
Yeah, that's right. Nothing wrong with that.
Right,
yeah, you can't do prep work every single week. It's just not realistic. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not kind of a general preparedness kind of human.
Yeah.
We respect that.
Trolled a little bit.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
I think my backpack I get made fun of all the time for being way too heavy for just like, what did you got in there? Like it's just what it weighs. It always weighs 15 pounds.
Don't ask questions. There's stuff in the backpack you don't need to know about.
It's fine.
All right, shall we move into the main topic then?
So last week we had a good chat about ruck marches. And in the event of a major emergency, we know we always have walking as a fallback option. A while ago, we had reviewed the book 77 Days in September. Just as a quick summary for anyone who doesn't remember the book club that week. Guy gets stranded several states away from home during an EMP event and basically has to walk most of the way across the United States to get home. So we sort of figured, hey, let's find a subject matter expert on this who's been crazy enough to walk across the entire country. So hence here is Mike. So Mike, you walked from Vancouver to Halifax because you had forgotten your car keys.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Not good with keys.
Now, what was the price of gas when you walked across?
My spring coat. Yeah, I don't know the price of gas was probably like 76, something like that.
Oh, the good old days.
That was like last year though, too, right? It was like 76 as well, or something bananas. Yeah. So I did that just after I did school, and it was set in my head. There was no questioning this. This is just like it was set in my head. It was something I'd planned on doing for about a 4-year period. So it was just. There wasn't really any second guessing the act of doing it. It was just that was what was going to happen, and started getting ready. Yeah, mentally 4 years ahead, and then worked for another 8 months after school to kind of paid off all my debts and started out west. So it sort of sets out thinking it's going to be one thing, and it doesn't necessarily didn't look anything like I first thought it might, but. just kind of got to go with the flow a little bit as it happens. So, but there was a lot of, I don't know where we're going to start with all this. Oh, geez.
So you guys, you found someone else crazy enough to walk with you.
Yeah, well.
Good for you guys. You guys were totally self-supported. You had your 2 big backpacks, your shoes, a lot of guts and determination, and you started out. I mean, we'd love to hear about how your walk evolved from, day one in Vancouver, dipping your toes in the Pacific, to the things you learned along the way, the water problems, the chasing bears, the kidnappings, whatever you... So when you started, how heavy was your pack?
It was way too much. It was so much. And I laughed because I did see this, what's that Reese Witherspoon movie where she like hikes the Pacific Crest or Pacific Crest Trail, Continental Divide? I don't know. One of those. I should know this. You guys don't know this? It's in pop culture.
No,
Somebody's here yelling on the internet feed, I'm sure. But there's a scene where she's like putting on a backpack and it's so heavy, she's got to like have it on the ground and like put it on, like get into it on the ground and like turn over like a turtle. And like that's how my life started. I learned things after things went on, but there's prep kind of that went into it before we even left. Like we decided we're trying to figure out math, like how long this might take. We want to start as early in the season as possible. So this is we're going to start from Vancouver. It's warmer there I guess spring comes early. And we started very end of February. So what this was going to mean though, is we're going to be in the mountains still through the end of winter and into this early spring. And that was going to be a lot of snow. So we started with an avalanche course because coming from Ontario, we don't know squat about avalanches. And the trail we were originally setting out on was going to be going through like mountain passes, old railway lines, and that changed as we went along. But it did start with avalanche training, and we learned a lot from it. We dialed back our expectations en route a little bit. There was stuff that went in ahead of time, but it was just for us. It was just something we thought would be great to do. It wasn't like a fundraising trip or anything. It was just a trip. It definitely, even the first day had nothing, like did not go as planned. It started in the morning fine. Pacific, we're starting the harbor in Vancouver and West Van, and was going to start with it's called the Baden Powell Trail. It's now originally what inspired this whole trip was they're going to do the Trans Canada Trail, a trail network from coast to coast was being constructed, and it should have been ready for the centennial. It wasn't, not even like mostly. So it started. It was going to be a lot of like backcountry hiking, and it's very quickly figured out like we will not make the miles, and we're kind of talking pre-GPS, pre-cell phones, pre-internet. Well, there's internet, but like, Ask Jeeves internet. So it's You
downloaded your music to your music list from Napster then, I take it?
Yeah, no, there's no there's nothing to download to. That was one of the things. Well, we'll talk about like what you carry. There was still Napster, but I didn't there's no MP3 player, there's no iPod. I was carrying a mini disc player actually. Music was important to me. Yeah, it's this sort of weird format of like micro CDs. If you really need your music though, it seemed like a logical thing because who can afford a 64 megabyte MP3 player? Not me. Not rich. So, so it started. We're hiking trails, started going right into the mountains. got lost pretty much right away. And we realized we had to, it wasn't gonna fly. There's there's already washouts and things, and we would need to turn around and we'd have to stick to the road, at least in the beginning. So we started on the highway and started working our way towards Hope, which is just up the Fraser Valley heading towards the mountains. So still kind of spring-like, and yeah, started from there, and then the trip kept evolving. I guess talking to people was really the biggest benefit that saved our asses.
So what was the first piece of equipment you shed, realizing there is no benefit to this, it is just ballast?
Oh my God. Well, I didn't shed anything until maybe 3 weeks in. And so I just lived like a turtle. Like if I fell, well, you gotta roll over into your hands and knees and get back up again. Or if you had to take your pack off. But I was, 24 at the time, and my knees were hurting. Like my knees, I would be preemptively popping like ibuprofen at noon, taking it again at the end of the day, just because my knees were hurting. And my pack probably weighed our packs were like 80 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
That's a ton of weight.
It's way too much. I had way too much. Into what I ditched here. First, we decided we weren't going to hike further into the bush. We chatted with a guy in Hope, BC. We're going to go to this 11-day stint through this old abandoned railway line and to hit this one little town. And we were chatting with a local guy at the Dairy Queen in Hope, and we were talking about this town. I had maps laid out on the table. He's like, I've been there once, like in an ATV, but like there's no store. It's like, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't walk 7 days expecting to reload and be screwed because it's another 9 days to get out of here. So there is that we learned from. So chatting to the locals helped, and we met our first we met another guy out in where we really started, where the walk really changed for us was hiking through this section. We decided to stick to the road, which seems like out of bananas, but if you're on the Trans-Canada through the mountains, a car goes by like every couple of minutes, and it's just bush again, and at nighttime there are no cars. And so it actually feels more like a trail than anything else. And I came across this one sort of ski resort place in the mountains. There's nothing there for about 60 kilometers, and all of a sudden there's this nice resort. And staying there, we decided to stop for lunch, and the waiter is like, what are you guys doing? We're walking across the country. And he's like, oh, hold on, there's somebody you need to talk to. And he just is gone. And then right on the way out, we met this guy, rolls into the booth, and he's like, hey, you guys walking across Canada? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I did that. What? I've been looking on Ask Jeeves for years trying to find anybody. I had no record. Like I figured like somebody goes across every year, but I could not find anyone. And here I am a few weeks in, 2 weeks in maybe, and I meet this guy Tay, who had done it years before, and we stayed with him that night, and he looked at how he said, you guys are carrying way too much. So this is where things really changed. And so what we did is, we were having an evening together. We had this sort of hostel kind of thing. We dumped all our stuff. He's like, dump everything on the ground. Dump it all out, everything. Put it all in a big pile. It is like, before you put anything into the keeper pile, you have to show me what that is. And then I'll tell you if you can keep it or not. So like, okay, fair enough. We started going through our stuff. And I remember picking up I had a stick of deodorant with me, and I held it up, and he looks at me and he's like, do you really want to be the first person to walk across Canada with deodorant? I guess not. And he's like, can I have it? So I'm like, sure. And like, so I think many items got passed as like, you're not going to carry that, are you? Like, no. He's like, can I have it? Sure. So we kind of had like this pile of keeper and a pile that went to him. And what we did ditch, we were carrying for avalanche safety. We had poles, transceivers, snowshoes for this different kind of hiking we were going to do, and all those got ditched. And we took an 80-pound pack and we dropped it to somewhere, I don't know, probably around 45 pounds, which was a lot more human, because we were making about 13 kilometers a day, 13 to 15 kilometers a day at that point, which was not enough. And you're limited by your feet. Your feet are mashed at the end of that day. So what we really learned, and what I came to really think about, because you've got time to think while you're just walking all day. This is like an 8-month journey. So you can only talk about so much together, and then you got a lot of time to ponder in your head. What you're thinking about is like, what else could I ditch? I need to ditch a little bit more. And I don't know if there's like a formula. It's like a kind of imperial metric formula, but like for every pound you could ditch out of your pack, you can go another kilometer at the end of the day before your feet were done. So we had kind of whipped our packs down to about 33 pounds later in the trip, and that was a pretty smooth 33, 35 pounds maybe, and that was doable. That was a good weight. But we are way too heavy going in. Wow, a lot of mistakes. I had a didgeridoo. I was really into this. I had like this PVC didgeridoo I thought I'd needed. Dummy.
I'm assuming your sort of nighttime accommodations or whatever was just a tent. You just picked it wherever you ended up stopping, and
yeah, that's exactly it. We just had a tent that we shared. It was like a 2-person. At the time, it was like an 8-pound tent, which is fairly lightweight. And yeah, that was our shelter for the evening. And just generally speaking, finding somewhere to sleep at night was not a big deal. Especially, it wasn't a big deal at all till maybe Ontario, Southern Ontario specifically. When you start rolling into like past Sault Ste. Marie, there's more people, but it seems unreal that like for the rest of Canada, like you're in a city or a town, and then you leave that town, it's bush, and there's lots of places you can sleep. Like if you can get picky in a lot of areas too, like Northern Ontario, you're like, this lake's okay, but I have a feeling if we go a little further, we can get a really great spot. It's a gamble. It's yeah, sleeping was a definite thing. But then as you get to more urban areas, like you had to get a little more creative and get into this set up your tent last and take it down first situation. Just, you don't want to have a tent sticking out somewhere. So there were a couple times I'd, sleep behind a carpet factory, or I don't know what it was. But it's a little more urban than I thought. I think one of the big changes, yeah.
I was going to say, just trying to kind of mix in and not be seen for the night.
Yeah.
Idea.
When I started, it was really thinking like I thought I need to try and stay in campgrounds and like designated places. It's really hard to plan all that. And especially, you don't make as many miles each day as you kind of set out to necessarily. You don't really know until you're doing it. And I tried to stay in this campground early on, and it was pouring rain and the season hadn't started. And I was like, guys, I'll pay you to sleep in this flooded pool of water. It's fine. And they're like, nope, sorry. You got to find somewhere else. And there's like, I don't know where to stay. And I ended up, sometimes you knock on a door. And I actually, I knocked on a door, and as a reserve that night, I met this guy there, and he sent me over to the band office, and I think Les was his name, and we were chatting with him a bit, and he's like, yeah, it's like they've done some marches, like long distance hikes, and as a group, like cross country, and he said, anyone doing this is a friend of ours, and he's like, you can stay under the bridge, but on our side, and if anyone gives you a hard time, tell them where to go. So I stayed under a bridge like really early on, and that just set a tone. That I was like, yeah. That changed like my standards of where I'm sleeping. Bridges became like, I don't even need to fly on tonight. What a dream.
But if you think about it, it's somewhere that's going to be dry 90% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
dusty because it's dry all the time. But apart from that, yeah, it's going to be dry. It's not a bad spot. I can see why people stay there.
Did you ever run into anybody else that was staying there?
Under the bridge? I didn't really stay under bridges a lot. A couple times, maybe. It wasn't my preferred place. I prefer to be off the road, like tuck in the bush, out of eyesight. You're in around a corner, you spot a little clearing in the bush, or I don't know, a little ledge or a shelf or something kind of out of the way where people don't even know you're there. And then you're gone the next day. You carry on. So that was a preferred spot versus like a bridge. Too much going on under a bridge, typically, unless it's pouring rain and you just started and you're lost and you're looking for friends. So yeah, but I don't even know what we're talking about. Good Lord!
Well, there you go.
Why did you let me on this show?
I'll spin that into a question. I'll spin you into a question then. We got one in the live chat here from Kyle. He just is asking if you were able to keep your feet dry and how you were able to do that.
Kyle, I was like thinking about this, like, what do you need to talk about? What's most important? And the feet dry thing is huge. So it's like people ask like, what kind of shoes, what kind of boots do you wear? And it really depends on what you're doing. Like you can get away with running shoes if you're not carrying a whole whack ton and it's not going to be, too technical terrain. Your feet get wetter in a running shoe than a boot. So I prefer a boot, something waterproof ish, like is that a Gore-Tex line boot, which I really like. So that helps with the dry part. What I'd also do is I'd wear gaiters. Gators, if you don't know, are kind of like a little shin wrap, like leg warmers, but like waterproof leg warmers, if that's a thing. The idea though, like when it rains, like that rain would shed over the top of your boot and onto the I don't know, top of your foot, I guess. So like you wouldn't get, if you have like regular pants or something, the water's going to run down your leg, and then like your boots outside can be waterproof, but you'd have water running down your leg and filling your boots essentially from the inside. So, sometimes you do get wet feet, but you can do those things to prevent it a bit. The other part is because if your feet get wet, you're getting blisters and life just sort of sucks. So I would say, so what really worked for me, and this is like a 6,000 kilometer walk, and I had a blister a few weeks in. I had one on my pinky toe a little bit, and like that was it for the whole thing. So my magic trick was these like thin blue liner socks. They almost look like a stocking. You can get them at I saw them at Mech had them, like the Mountain Equipment Co-op, but I saw them also at Mark's Work Warehouse. These like thin liner socks. Don't put them near the fire. Don't put them on a hot air register because they'll melt. I've done it. They're definitely synthetic and they're very thin. So, but you put those on and then you put your other socks on over top. Use something like a wool or a polypro or something like that. Can get wet and it's not going to suck all the moisture out of your feet. No, it's like it'll keep your feet soaked all the time and cold. So those two things. But sometimes your feet still get wet. So my system is I had like 2 pairs of socks for like the daytime, like I could alternate, and then 1 pair of socks that was just for bed. It never saw a boot ever. But sometimes you still get your feet wet. It's pouring rain and your socks get wet. So my magic trick to keeping your feet dry for the next day, keep your socks dry, after you've wrung them out and all that stuff, but it's still rainy. It's been raining for like 3 days and it's gonna keep going. It sounds gross and terrible. I used to sleep in like kind of a tights, I don't know, like a spider, not like Superman, but like the tights of some sort. Anyway, long john, so like a synthetic long john. So you take that wet sock and you shove it on the side of your thigh. You lay it out flat on the sides of your thigh. So putting a cold, wet sock on the side of your thigh at nighttime does not sound very appealing. But you wake up in the morning, sock's dry. And you got dry socks for the next day. So like dry feet, so important. And that's like a magic trick that just works. And if you're really hooped, your boots are soaked, I would like wear my socks and my boots, walk around and like sop. I take my socks off, wring them out, walk in them for another 50 feet, bring them out again, and just keep doing that till I can get them like pretty good. So it's a good way to kind of pre-dry your boots out if you end up in that spot. But yeah, dry feet are the key. And that's probably the best question, or the best question in terms of gear and like what to do. Like having dry feet is really is the biggest one, I think.
Did your boots last you the whole trip?
Nope. You know what the funny thing is, though, I learned is like kind of an inside joke. People who did this hike, I met other people who did this as well, 2 others, and one guy actually made a shirt with questions and answers on it, because the first question was like, how many pairs of boots do you go through? Which I've never really thought about, but it's a good question. And I did 3 pairs. You actually burn right through the boots, and they were done. And one thing I didn't expect is my feet used to be a 9.5 and they became a 10 on this hike. Or they went to a 10.5 and they're back to a 10, but I've never gone back to 9.5 status. They actually did grow, and your feet did get, like when I say like all you think of is like reducing your weight, you get to a point in the day you really just can't go any further. It's not even daylight limiting your time. It's just your feet are so mashed. I would almost need boots on. If I stayed in somebody's house, I'd have to wear my boots to like go up and down stairs and like to walk around, because like I couldn't walk without them. So it's just kind of a weird time, but it's part of it. And they were okay the next day, but you're done at the end of the day. That's for sure. So we were.
Sorry, did you have to carry your other pairs of boots with you? Did you?
Oh no! So
pre-thought out place you could stop and buy them, or how did that work out?
Yeah. So we did gear swaps. So when we came out of the mountains, got to Alberta, I think spring was about there, and I was maybe in Alberta, and my mom was working for the airline, so she flew out and met us. And she carried all my summer gear, like all our summer gear she brought out with us. We gave her sort of swapped out some winter gear, and did a big switch around that time. Also got rid of some extra things I didn't really, really need. Sometimes I mail home a care package that was like 4 pounds, because I'm like, I'm not carrying this knife anymore. What am I doing? It's way too big. Am I Rambo? Like this needs like a big pocket knife. This is crazy. So all you think about is like how you can make this lighter. So, yeah. And it depends what kind of hike you're doing. If you're going to do something really like out there, if you're going to head like in like big canoe routes up, or not canoe routes, but like big hiking routes up north, or like be gone like through these trails, there's not the luxury of stocking up at a town maybe every 3 days, which is about average. We'd run into something. I've become a connoisseur of shopping at a gas station. I can feed you, not bad, at any gas station. They've always got dried rice and beans. Add one of those Norris soup mixes to it, and that'll sustain you. And I ate a lot of that. But if you're gonna go on something a lot more remote like that, you'd need somebody to mail you stuff and send stuff. General delivery. You can predict what town you're going to be in. You can send something general delivery to a post office. You're going to be in White River, and you're like, I think I'm going to be there around June 17th. You tell somebody who cares to send you something. The White River general delivery, and you put your name on it. I didn't know this is the thing. And you show up and you give them your ID, and they'll give you that package, and you can. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing either.
Yeah, no.
I didn't. Yeah. Who knew, right? It's kind of fun. To get mail when you have no business. You've never been to this place before, but you've got mail.
So I was going to ask the same question Kyle asked. It's in the live chat there. What did you do for food? Did you have some freeze-dried stuff, MREs? Did you hunt at all for any food?
Nah.
Did you get that to that
I
point?
caught a fish once, caught a pike. Fishing. I didn't really have a lot of fishing gear and stuff. Food was kind of there, like, because we were walking on the Trans-Canada Highway for most of this, even though like towns could be like 60 to 100 kilometers apart sometimes, we were making about 33 kilometers a day in the summer. So that's 3 days out we can get somewhere. So we didn't need to, like, hunting would take a lot of time too. Like, it's more, if you didn't have an agenda, like we weren't taking days off. Like fishing was sort of a happenstance thing. Like, hey, we can do a fish tonight, and we've got this great spot in northern Ontario. There's a lake right here. It's summer. But for the most part, no, we were oatmeal in the morning, those little packets, super boring because we did it so many times. And, the rice and beans, let that soak, let the beans soak in your Nalgene through the day, slosh around in there, kind of cut down on fuel usage later in the day because they're kind of pre-soaked, half cooked, or like they're partway cooked up. And so beans and rice, and then you add in something flavor, like in a packet you can find, throw that in. And then you'd have little luxuries. Maybe you're in a town that, and you get a can of condensed milk and a box of cereal, and the two of you mash, or not condensed, evaporated milk. That'd be super gross. That's way too sweet. You can cut evaporated milk can half and half with water, and then have yourself a bowl of cereal as a special little treat. Crush a box of Fruit Loops in one sitting, and we eat so many calories. I had the grossest stuff. Like, you're like, why would you do this? I would take a pita, and like I had these tubes, these like plastic tubes you can pack full of like peanut butter or margarine or whatever, and then like toothpaste tubes, and just you can squeeze stuff out. And I would eat peanut butter and butter sandwiches just to like get the calories in through the day. I didn't die from clogged arteries immediately, but I'm sure it's taken some years off the back end.
So what did you do for hydration, especially in the summer and the hot days? And I mean, you can't carry around liters and liters of water with you all the time. What was
water is one of the main things you think about, for sure. You're thinking about in the day, how far you're going to go, where you're going to sleep that night, and where you're going to get your water. Those, you've got food, you're pretty good. You've got dry rations and stuff you're good, but you can't carry 3 days of water, so you're gonna have to find it. So water would come from, sometimes I start with the filter, then I switched to just drops, like those like 2-part active drops if I needed it from a river. I'd sort of filter it through a bandana. I think now though they've got these like little UV sticks that would work great. So sometimes I was getting from lakes, rivers up in northern Ontario, but typically like I'd knock on doors a lot, and sometimes I'd be out in the prairies. Like, where are you going to find water? You're in the middle of Saskatchewan, and it's just you can see Regina, but it's like still like 6 days away. So maybe you knock on the door of like a ranch or something and ask, hey, this is what we're doing. Can I fill up my water bottles? And you kind of knock on a door and you back up a ways because you're out in somebody's place who's not used to seeing people, and maybe there's an outside tap, or sometimes people are like, yeah, no problem. And other times people are like a little timid about someone just showing up out of nowhere, the more rural you are. But people are generally really friendly, and I would rely on people. And sometimes you ask that question too. You're like, hey, so while you're getting the water, you're also maybe having a little chat about like, we still don't have a place to sleep tonight. We don't ask to stay in people's places, but like, hey, we're going down the road. Is there any kind of bushland or like spot to sleep? And sometimes like, oh, our field ends like at the end of that knoll over there. You can stay in a corner of our field. It's fine. Like, great. So got our water. We got somewhere to sleep that night. So we're doing good. But yeah, water is a big piece, and it had become a problem in a couple spots in Ontario, actually, like we're like lake heavy. You have water all the time, and it switches from lakes to a bit of rivers, and they could be pretty far apart. And there's one night we were the dehydration was definitely kicking in. You get clumsy and you're desperate. You've got that little sip of water left, but I've drank out of some pretty suspect sources. Filtered them, and that's fine. But you got in the habit too of when you hit a tap, maybe it's in the restaurant, like a little corner store restaurant or gas station. You ask, like, hey, is the water okay? To drink out of here, like the school, like, because sometimes it's not potable. You kind of take it for granted it is, but not always. So you might have to, but they might tell you where to get it. Go to the next town, Chapman. They have the best water in the whole prairies. Yeah. Done.
So what is popsicle money?
Oh yeah, forgot about that. So when you're walking alongside the road, people like lose stuff out their windows of their cars. I don't know. You see different things. Like sometimes you find an old cassette tape. I'm sure like people are listening to for like the 50th time in a row, and like no more, and just like whoosh, out the window. And, like, so I would come across those, and what else are you going to be reading the tape out and kind of imagining the song in your head? You don't have a tape player, so. I found somebody's wallet once on the side of the road, and out in the prairies, and I was like it was the Kenora. I'm like, all right, I'll bring this to you when I get there. Right in the top.
Trade it for some water.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, sometimes you find a couple coins on the side of the road. So popsicle money was like this little pouch. Shannon had it on her hip, and you find money at the side of the road. That was like the extra. We had no money. We were both broke. So you find 10 cents, 25 cents, maybe a loonie. I don't know if the loonie is part and parcel just yet. I think it existed. So occasionally find a coin here and there. Then we have this little pouch that you'd save up, and you can buy popsicles with it. Special treat and get to the gas station.
I'm pretty sure toonies existed when you did the walk.
They did. Yeah, I did. I do recall that as a thing. I remember hammering the center out of those once. They're like, hey, Toonie, let's knock the center out. It worked. Now I'm out $2. Stupid.
So we've got a question here in the live chat from Pat, just asking us in regards to dehydration and walking in general. Any cramping issues or any problems stomach-wise with grabbing water out of the rivers and lakes and such?
No problems with the water lakes. I was pretty careful. Like, I did take precaution. I would filter. I did remember picking up one, and I was just going to use the drops, and I looked and I'm like, there's a lot of stuff like wiggling in here. I gotta run it through a bandana first, but I never really ran into any I'm gonna just give this a pre-filter before I dump this chlorine drops in. So I had no real issues there. In terms of dehydration, though, wearing a hat is really key. Wide brim hat is nice if you can do it. Something not too doesn't trap heat. I have this like leather hat that I wear now, but will be too hot for the summer. Something with a bit of a brim, keep your lid cool, and that's a big part, because when you get used to being out, whatever temperature you're in over time, I found. And we were hiking in maybe 28, 29 degrees Celsius weather. What's that? Fahrenheit, double it at 30, like 88, something like that.
Sure, close enough.
The math, something like that. But it's hot, and you're in the full sun. You're exposed all day. There's not a lot of shade, but we were fine. But we took a week off in the middle, and just to take a break when we got to Sudbury, and then go back to Sudbury and carry on again. And I was in air conditioning for a week, and when I went back out, I instantly got heat stroke like the first day. So yeah, just not used to it. I was soft from the air conditioning. So, but yeah, cramping and stuff, like guts being off. Oh yeah, once I got super sick. I was pumping water out of a river in BC, just coming out of the Rockies near Fernie, and I was pumping water. When you're filling up water, you drink a whole bunch. And I still had a filter this time. I don't know. I don't think it did viruses, because I was drinking. I was pumping water, drinking, pumping water, drinking, and then you you stock up because you want to hydrate first, carry everything you can on your back, and then go. And did that, and then started walking. And in this section, the river just runs wide right along the side of the highway. You're kind of following the river, the valley. And I got about 500 meters up the road, and there's this big bloated dead elk right in the middle of the river, upstream from where we just filtered. I was like, I was not well for a period of time. I got really sick actually that night, and I had a fever, and it was minus 10 outside, and you're in your sleeping bag, and trying to sweat out a fever when it's cold out is not pretty. We ended up, that was a long night. Things are going so well. You're like, oh, that's not good. And like, I hope there's no negative impacts, and there most certainly was.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I say, there was that one time. Thank you for reminding me and letting me relive that a moment.
So moral of the story is check up river before you drink from it. Got it.
Check up river. We were talking about dry feet and stuff earlier. I just touched out on clothing. We used to wear polyesters were kind of a thing for base layer. I would say make sure you're sticking polyesters for your base, or like something synthetic, or wool. I would think even better. The advantage to wool is it doesn't stink. I smelled so bad. Like I would sometimes go into stores in the summer. Oh yeah, I didn't have deodorant. I was hooped, and like I certainly wasn't showering. And so you'd hope for the lake experience once in a while. But I would sometimes go into stores, and I would go in and like, I'm sorry, and like you're getting what you needed and apologizing profusely and like running out. It wasn't good. I think wool might help a little bit with that. But anyway, don't go in jeans.
I can attest to how much you smelled.
Oh man, I'm sorry. And we were outside. I didn't even encounter you in the indoors. Sorry.
Oh, when you got kidnapped in Northern Ontario.
Oh yeah. You have to remind me of this again. I'm fuzzy. I've
so I came up knowing you were doing the walk, knowing you were in Northern Ontario. Came along the highway where I knew you'd be. Met you guys, stole your packs, parked my car where we were going to go at the end of the day, and then biked back to meet you.
Yeah.
I had to throw out the car. We went to my uncle's house, and he needed a plumber to declog the drains with whatever it was shedding off you guys.
Really?
It was horrific.
It's a lot of sloth. We hadn't exfoliated in a while. I suppose, that's going to back up any drain. Sorry to your uncle's plumbing. Sorry, Bill. I owe you one. I owe you a beer or two for that. Being inside wasn't necessarily her strong suit. I'm sure we got a shower, though, and appreciated every moment of it.
Now, I know you guys also had some interaction with wildlife beyond Dead Elk Upriver. Was it Northern Ontario that you're in the tent and something happened?
Yeah. We didn't have I don't really have too much of a negative encounter with wildlife. We did up in Nipigon, though. We'd restocked on food the day before, just past Nipigon, and we stayed this little clearing that night. It's a little cool, and in the morning, early, first light, I can hear hiking partner Shannon walking around, come back from a pee or something. And then she's pushing on the tent, right up to my face, and then letting off, and pushing the tent right to my touching my face and letting off. What is she doing? And I'm really dozy, and I hear her walk around the tent to the other side, and I realize she's sleeping inside the tent, and that must not be her. So it turned out as a bear, and I had every day, every night. I would hang my pack, not in the prairies because we're gonna sling your food bag up. No trees, maybe a bush. I've definitely tried to find privacy behind a 4-foot bush before. But one night in Ontario, I didn't hang my pack. Bam, bear found me, and just scoops the whole food bag, like everything was in there, pots, pans, and all the food, and a loaf of rye bread tied right to the side, like a 907-gram loaf of rye, dense rye, and because we were living large, we just came back from a food shop, and it went, and the first thing we thought was like the food. So I ran out of the tent, and I paused. I was like, nope, don't wreck your dry clothes. Don't wreck your dry socks. Ran back in, put my wet, dampy day socks on, ran back out again. And the two of us, without really thinking about it, just like, we got to find this guy. And we started traipsing through the bush. You could see the wet grass where it ran in. And we shot into the edge of the clearing, into the bush. And like we saw, first of all, there's the bag, the rye bag. And it's been like 20 seconds. The whole loaf of bread was gone. Like, this is a 2-pound loaf of bread gone. It's in 20 seconds. Not only did I get it, he figured out, open the bag and eat the whole loaf by the time I got my shoes on. And so we did this zigzag pattern going back and forth through the bush, hiking forward, trying to find this yellow bag and this bear, without really pausing to consider it was a good idea. But he had our stuff. So after about 45 minutes of looking, where I was about to give up, and I was like, I'm not putting in my journal today that I lost the food and all the cooking. Like, then we were like, what are we going to even cook with anymore? Like, everything's in there. And I spotted it. I spotted yellow, and I got there, and the bag had the kind of a Kevlar kind of dry sackness to it, and it opened the top of the bag, eaten all the cookies in the top, and hit a frying pan, and had troubles getting through the frying pan, I guess, around the frying pan. And when we showed up, so got the food bag, I ate all the cookies that were on the ground, all the bits of cookies, just pound them in the face. Came back with the disappointing news: the bear got the cookies. But we got the bag. So it could have been much worse. But, sometimes that happens.
At the time, it sounded like a good idea, and later...
It seemed like a great idea at the time. Like, neither of us, we hesitated for a moment.
Yeah, maybe not.
We stopped and we should maybe get our hiking sticks. And then, we went back with our stick. Is that all? And then when we were packing up the tent, we were rolling up, the bear came back in the clearing, and it looked at us, and we looked at the bear, and we're like, you bastards, you got the rest of it. And we looked at the bear like, you got the bread. And a deal's a deal. And we just went our own ways. And it was okay.
Yep. I know you also met a lot of very cool people along the way and learned a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're telling me about a guy with a cart that was very reminiscent of 77 Days in September.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about this. I read the bit of the bio. What's that? Prelog? Synopsis? Thing? Summary? Book summary. But yeah, the guy was traveling with the cart, and I met a fellow in Quebec, and he was like an older guy wearing real short, Daisy Duke cutoffs and big beard. And he looked kind of maybe like he's a homeless guy. I don't really know what's going on in the story, but he had this cart, kind of the size of those ice cream guys would ride. It's part BMX bike, part cart. And the ice cream would come out the front. He had something like that. And it was just basically his whole system. He'd have just a shopping cart handle on this thing, and had 2 bicycle wheels and a big aluminum lid that would open up. And inside there had everything he needed. So he wasn't worried about carrying a little bit of extra weight, and because it didn't affect him the same way. And he just pushed it along the side of the road. He was traveling a long way too. I don't know his whole trajectory, but he had done a lot of traveling all around the world. And he was on his way through Quebec at the time, and he was actually collecting bottles from the side of the road to sustain himself. I don't think he's formally working, but like he would pick up empties and you put them in the cart, and then when you hit a town, you unload the empties, make a few bucks, and carry on. So I'm sure he's taking change from that side of the road, but we were walking on opposite sides, so we didn't interfere with each other's business. But he was
So out of everything that you had, some stuff you got rid of, whatever, but were there 2, maybe 3 critical pieces of equipment that you absolutely could not have done what you did if you didn't have them with you?
Like that I needed, or like I didn't really need, but
that you needed.
I needed. Well, the clothing and the socks part is so key. Oh yeah. So when I started, I spent some money on a real nice shell, Gore-Tex, fancy pants. I think half the money I spent on my gear was on this shell, and I decided about a month in, screw the shell. This is not the ideal thing. So if you're imagine yourself wearing a backpack, you've got imagine the best shell that could exist in today's market. And it's maybe even your backpack is waterproof and everything, sort of. And for a while anyway, and then it's raining, and all that rain is running down your neck between your back and the pack and sitting there, and your back gets soaked. That whole backside of your pack gets soaked. So you're spending all this money, all this gear, and you're still getting wet. So my solution then, and still to this day hiking, is the poncho. You get one of those, like, even those, they have nicer ones now, but those standard vinyl, like heavier ponchos, put it on your head, you throw the whole part over your whole back and shoulders and let it drape over the backpack, and it'll go just to like the bottom of the pack, and the front part's a little long, and you can probably finagle, kind of jerry rig the snaps so you can get them to snap like high and low on one side. And so basically what it does is all that rain sheds over your pack and it drops behind you, like behind your butt. So when you're walking, even the back of your legs kind of have like this rain shadow. It's like kind of like having an umbrella. And even the front's a little bit longer too. So the front of your legs stay fairly dry. So your junk is dry, right? You don't have this water running down into your pants from the top down. You're getting less water running down your legs and into your boots. So the poncho, I would say, is an indispensable thing. So, and it's like $8. And I would say if I was wearing those, like even in the wintertime, I'd ditch the shell for one of those any day of the week. So yeah, the poncho, I would say, was one of those like things as sleepers you didn't really think about, but man, yeah, that was the right call. I don't know who got me onto that. Somebody mentioned something once, and did not forget that. Yeah.
Anything else you could think of that was, like you mentioned, the bear ran away with your pots and pans. Like, I guess you could have found another way to maybe cook something, but
yeah, I guess so. Can over the fire for a while. We didn't really actually have fires. Partly because you're lighting a fire in somewhere that's not really a clearing, and I don't know. I had maybe a couple fires along the way. As like an occasion we maybe ran into this one.
Okay, because I would have thought maybe you'd have a frequent fire, a way to cook something and and some warmth and
so I carried a gas stove, like a white gas stove, as my main. Boil up water in the morning, boil up water in the evening is a pain. I don't really love it. It's heavy. I think I would practice a bit first. But one of those like little stoves that you can just burn whatever crud you find, and I forget what they're called. Like it's got a bit of a wood gasification in it. I was actually listening to your wood gasification.
They call them biolights, I think, is what you're talking about. And you can
you're not buying
on the top, and
Yeah, you put a pan on the top, and it's a bit of a wood gasifier at the same time, so it's a more efficient burn, and you can like burn pine cones and little bits of sticks and stuff. I would consider something like that, because that's going to really drop weight and drop that having to find fuel and deal with that. Sure, it's not as fuel dense, and there's going to be times where it's going to be pouring rain and not really ideal. You may have to make do, but hey, the weight save may be worth it to you, and you're not lighting a fire on the ground the same way. So
how much did Scott pay you to say wood gasifier?
$3. He says this will buy a tall boy.
Holy, Scott, you're cheap.
$3 is $3, man. And
the center wasn't even in the middle of the toonie.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to do me. It's a loony and like a toonie. You can see he's like holding that different distances. Like, I know what you're giving me.
So this goes on for a long time, and obviously it's tough mentally as well. Did you ever get to the point where you were like, yeah, you know what? It was a great try and whatever, but I'm done.
I think mentally, the first big hurdle was about 2 weeks in. 2 weeks in, you're kind of getting your system in order, and you miss what you just had. You miss your friends, you miss what you were doing. You're kind of out of your element a little bit. Like, even though you're finding this new groove, you miss a lot. That was hard. I remember laying up looking at the stars and feeling like I wasn't considering quitting, but it was hard. That was a hard night. And that was it. I just was like, but then I was in it. And it definitely gets hard. At times, like when you're hiking with we're two people hiking this, and we're never, I don't know, like maybe you've lived with somebody, or maybe you're married, but you're together a lot. But you go to work, or you leave the house and get something and come back. But we were always within eyesight of one another the entire time, and that gets hard too, just because there's nothing new to talk about. For starters, like everything that happened to you today totally happened to the other person, and they saw it. They were like 8 feet away. So like that gets hard too. Like there's definitely that gets tough, even though you can be great friends and you're otherwise get along fine. Just that can be tough. And I think that would be a little bit of a challenge, but I never really thought about quitting. That really wasn't an option. I was pretty hard-nosed about this was happening. That wasn't really up for debate. But yeah, definitely there's times. And I think before I took a break in February, I was losing it. I was just, I don't know what happened. My body was shutting down, and I couldn't, it was like I was drunk, but I wasn't. I just couldn't walk a straight line. I don't know. I was falling apart psychologically, I think. I needed a beer. But I was okay when I came back. It was fine. Need a day off, maybe. I forgot what else I was going to talk about. There was something I did want to mention. Because I think when we talk a lot about this prepper stuff, and like, I don't know, I've only listened to a bit of your show. I'm sorry, I haven't listened to all 148 prior to this. But, the other piece you're talking about, like, what's that critical piece of gear? And then the other piece, the other critical piece, I think, is really the people. If you're going to walk a long way, you're going to meet people. You have to, like, and the fewer you meet people, the more you're going to rely on them as well, or maybe those relationships are, like, even if they're just brief. So those encounters become really important. So how you kind of are, and like meeting people and just making that, I don't know, that was a really important piece, and something we enjoyed, but also like really important for the success of our trip. We learned, we avoided a lot of danger in the Rockies by talking to locals. People around know the area more than anything else. You kind of get the vibe of what's going on in an area, but really the sort of underrated part is, I think, just talking to people as you meet them, and like you learn a lot along the way, and that was a really big piece, and just a big add the whole experience as well. So even if you're setting out, even I spend a lot of time in the bush by myself, but I'm oddly social with the very few people who are around as well. So it is, even on something like this that seems like very independent potentially and like isolated, those relationships are, whatever they may be, even in passing, are quite important. So yeah. Sorry, you're going to ask something I forgot. I got distracted again.
I was going to say, I just think that's a really good point that you brought up of, when you're walking, you're going to run into people, and how you approach them and how you talk to them is going to play a role in how they respond to you and how willing they are to kind of help you out. But inherently people tend to want to help you out, which is nice. But yeah, definitely not being afraid to walk up and expect, maybe they're not going to help me, but if I don't ask, I'm never going to know.
Yeah, I've kind of, when it comes to the water and stuff, I was relying on people. I was relying on the kindness of strangers to like help me out with the water situation, and even help me out like maybe where I'm going to stay that night. Sometimes it's a bit of a jam, and you kind of want to, this cool, like if I'm down the road up on that around the bend there, does anyone care? I don't know, you get the sense of what's going on. But yeah, a real big piece, and who knows what you learn. I was getting ready to climb under a bridge. The other time I was going to sleep under a bridge, and in Quebec, and this guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, nothing, just checking the other side of this bridge." He's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not crazy or anything." I'm like, "Well, said he wasn't crazy. What have you got?" So
what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? He seems fine. And we actually had a great chat, and we ended up staying with him and his uncle right on the St. Lawrence River that night, and drinking cherry wine and smoking cigars. And he was talking about how he wanted to do this trip, and he was designing this cart. He wanted to show me this design for this cart he was building that was going to be, it actually had a port that opened that he could like sleep in at night, which I thought was a really clever design. Very just like pack up and go. Like there's no packing up and going. You just shut the door and away you go. I thought it was really interesting idea. He showed me all the sketches and everything. It was a really interesting happenstance encounter that you wouldn't get if you weren't open to it. If you were, holding your cards close to your chest, you just have to kind of, I don't know. So much of that just happened organically along the way.
That's absolutely fantastic, buddy. I think this is such a neat experience for us to all learn from. I mean, in the context, if we had to do this, like that's exactly it. We'd all be so reliant on each other, and that's pretty cool.
Don't carry 80 pounds. Don't be the first chump to carry deodorant. Just let everyone else suffer is the moral of the story. You'll be fine. You'll get used to your own foulness and putrescence.
No, that is awesome. Thanks for taking the time, Mike, to walk us through your story.
Oh, thank you, guys.
And give everybody kind of a few tips here and there, because I think it really does kind of paint a picture as to what you can expect. And it's a matter of not packing a million things, but packing what you need and relying on people. You're going to have to. It's just
and you'll figure out what you don't need. It's all you'll think about. You'll work out the bugs.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's a lot of really good information that everybody's going to be able to put to use for sure.
Beauty.
Well, with that, shall we move into the podcast challenge?
This week, our challenge to you guys: go take a walk. Any distance, it doesn't matter. Just get out there and take a good long walk.
Don't bring deodorant.
Mm-hmm. Ditch that, you'll be fine.
I thought that was the deal of the week. Deodorant.
Yes, let's move to the deal of the week, shall we?
Yeah, well, Costco probably sells them in a 4-pack or a 5-pack,
Yeah.
Carry 5 or 6 of them. That should get you across the country, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Carry them all at once, prioritize that.
So the deal of the week, Princess Auto has booster cables on sale, 20-foot 2-gauge booster cables for $18.88. So
It's a
if you
random
don't have a
price.
set in your vehicle, you should always have booster cables anyways, or give them to your significant other as a Christmas present or a birthday present. They will love you forever for it.
That's what my mom always used to say. You don't know what to get. Booster cables.
Oh,
Yep.
there you go. All right. We'll move into some shout outs here. So, just quick shout out to Mike for coming out tonight, sharing your story with us and passing along a couple of tips and tricks that I'm sure is going to help a lot of people just maybe whittle down their packs a little bit, or maybe even go and decide to take the walk themselves. So thanks again for coming out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
I want to shout out my mag. Just I've had a rough couple of weeks, and they've been awesome. I also want to shout out Eric. If you guys are listening to this on the podcast and don't see the visual, he's been muted and laughing his ass off this entire time. So well done, Mike.
It's true. I've got a good chuckle this evening. It's been great.
And I've got a shout out to Kevin and Caroline and the rest of the crew from the Simcoe Preparedness and Resiliency community, kind of a bit of a prepper community in my local area. Been following them on Facebook for a while, giving them some ideas here and there. And they organized a meet and greet today. So it was nice to actually sit down face to face, have a conversation with like-minded preppers and exchange ideas.
Yeah, it's a great group to hang out with. I wasn't able to make it out to the coffee meet and greet today, but there is a Facebook group. So if anybody's looking for like-minded people to chat with, you don't have to be in the Simcoe area. Wherever you can, if you're on the Book of Faces there, they are there. So come on over and chat. The inbox was dry for email, and no iTunes reviews, no 5 stars, 1 stars, 3 stars, or anything. So nothing to report there. So with that, I will bring episode number 149 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Take a second, submit a review. It helps other people find us and gives me something to read near the end of the show.
And we record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. If you want to reach me, you can just send a generic message, feedback at prepperpodcast.ca. And if Eric feels like it, I will get the message.
Yeah, maybe not. Can't guarantee it.
Feedback at prepperpodcast.ca also works for Scott. And if you're looking to get in touch with Mike, we can get in touch with him through the address. We know where to find you, buddy.
Thanks.
Yeah. For you two gentlemen, I will forward the messages, no problem. Jeff is still questionable.
Yeah, well.
And for me, you can find me on the live chat at rapidsurvival.com. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.